Hello. In this session we will study about vacuoles. We'll try to understand what are vacuoles, where are they distributed. When I say distribution, I mean to say what type of cells have them and what type of cells do not have them. This is the meaning of the word distribution of vacuoles. The next thing that we'll study about vacuole is where inside the cell is a vacuole located, or are the vacuoles located if there are many vacuoles. Then we'll study what is the structure of a vacuole, and the last thing we'll study about vacuole is what function is performed or what functions are performed by vacuoles. Let's proceed to our next slide. So vacuoles are storage organelles. Now I hope you remember what organelles are. Organelles are tiny organs, tiny organ-like structures which are present inside the cells. Now these organelles perform different functions. In your previous classes you've studied about organelles like the mitochondria or the endoplasmic reticulum or the Golgi body, and likewise vacuoles are also organelles. But what is the function? Their primary function is to store things. Another important property of vacuole is that they have a membrane. They are surrounded by a membrane because they are bag-like structures, so they are surrounded by a membrane, and this membrane is similar in structure to the cell membrane, the membrane that makes up the cell. And the last thing that you need to understand about vacuole at the moment as a part of the introduction is that they are bags. They are nothing more than bags. They serve as bags or sacks or boxes inside the cells. And let us look at a vacuole here in the image. And you see this central area here, this white space in the center of the cell. This is a vacuole. This area is the vacuole. So you see we have a large vacuole in the center in these cells, and all of these are plant cells. Now let us try to understand what is the distribution of vacuoles. Again, let me explain to you what we understand by distribution. Distribution means what type of cells have them and what type of cells do not have them. So the cells that don't have vacuoles are prokaryotes. Prokaryotes do not have vacuoles, whereas all the eukaryotic cells have vacuoles in them. Now also let us revise what is the difference between a prokaryotic cell and an eukaryotic cell. Now bear in mind that all the living organisms on our planet are made up of cells. Now cells can be grouped into two major categories, or into two groups, the prokaryotic and the eukaryotics. The eukaryotic cell, let us try to understand what are eukaryotic cells. The eukaryotic cells have structures called organelles inside them. They have them. Prokaryotes do not. Prokaryotes do not have organelles. Now let us have a look at this structure here. If you look at this particular cell, you can see this structure in the center. This is called the nucleus. And then we have other such structures. For example, we got the mitochondria, and we have something known as the centriole or the Golgi body, and all of these structures, or tiny structures inside the cell, are called organelles. Now what are organelles? Organelles serve particular functions. They perform specific functions. For example, the mitochondria here, it serves as a powerhouse. Just like we have powerhouses that supply electricity for homes, this mitochondria, it supplies energy for the entire cell. The nucleus acts as the decision making body, or the chief administrator, or the principal of the school, right? So this is basically the control center of the entire cell. Now when we look at prokaryotes, we do not have organelles, but this does not mean that this particular cell will not perform all of these functions. But the function of mitochondria in this particular cell is not located inside an organelle, but all those components that provide energy to the cell are located elsewhere in the cell but not in organelles. Similarly, the molecule called DNA, which is found inside the nucleus in eukaryotes, is simply found scattered here inside the cell. I hope you can see this structure called nucleoid. This nucleoid is the DNA of the prokaryotic cell, which contains all the information regarding this particular cell. So, what you need to remember out of this discussion is uh, the difference that prokaryotes, they do not have organelles, whereas eukaryotic cells have organelles. This is the first difference. Another difference that you must remember between a prokaryotic cell and an eukaryotic cell is prokaryotes are always unicellular. They are always unicellular, always, which means that prokaryotes are always made up of only one cell. Their body is made up of only one cell. So prokaryotes are unicellular. And the only prokaryotes known to us are bacteria. Eukaryotes, on the other hand, can be unicellular, they can be unicellular or can be multicellular. What do I mean by this? That some eukaryotes are made up of one cell. Let me give an example of a single-celled eukaryote, amoeba. And the rest of the eukaryotes are multicellular. So there are few unicellular eukaryotes, but most of the eukaryotes are multicellular. Examples of eukaryotic cells are protists. Amoeba is an example of a protist. We got fungi. The mushrooms that you eat are fungi. They are also eukaryotic, made up of eukaryotic cells. Animals, we are animals, and plants. So protists, fungi, animal and plants are eukaryotic organisms made up of eukaryotic cells, whereas bacteria are the only prokaryotic cell. Anyways, coming back to vacuoles. Vacuoles are found in all eukaryotic cells, but they are missing in all prokaryotic cells. Let's proceed to the next topic, which is, so what is the structure? What is the structure of a vacuole? The vacuole is made up of a membrane. Okay, it is made up of a membrane, and this membrane has a structure similar to that of a cell membrane, which you have studied in your previous classes. Now, this membrane of the vacuole is made up of lipids, which are nothing but fats like your oil and butter, etc., and it is also made up of proteins, and other substances are also a part of the membrane of the vacuole, right? Now, what are these other substances? They can be carbohydrates, etc., but you will study them in your higher classes. Now, what is inside a vacuole? Now, the inside of the vacuole can contain a wide variety of substances. They can store substances like starch or water or some crystals for their protection or safety. They can also, vacuole can also contain wastes. They can also store wide variety of wastes. So also what I've done at the same moment is I've also spoken about the function of the vacuole. Then the function of the, let us come to the functions. The function of the vacuole is to store wastes and useful substances, the ones that I just spoke about. Now, another important function of the vacuole is to maintain the shape of the plant cell. So here what we have is we have a plant cell. Now, inside the plant cell, let me decrease the size of this line. The inside of the plant cell, so this is a plant cell, the inside of the plant cell has cytoplasm, and this part is the cytoplasm. I hope you remember what cytoplasm. It is mostly made up of water, and it has got a variety of salts and variety of nutrients, and it has also got a lot of dissolved gases, etc., etc., right? So cytoplasm is here, and this is the vacuole. Now the shape of the cell is not maintained by the cytoplasm greatly. Yes, it does contribute to the shape, but not mostly. The shape of the cell is greatly contributed the by the vacuole, by the content in the vacuole. So this area in the center here is the vacuole, and this is full of water, right? So the central vacuole in plants is mostly full of water, and when there's a lot of water present inside the vacuole, the cell gains a particular shape, and the cell is said to be turgid. When the vacuole is full of water and the cell has uh, achieved its specific shape, we call it a turgid cell. But let us say on a summer day, on a hot summer day, water evaporates from the plant. So the vacuole also loses its water to the outside, and the cell loses its shape, and the cell shrivels or shrinks in size, right? And such a cell is called a flaccid cell. So let us recall the functions once again. There are two functions performed by the vacuole. The first is storage of wastes and storage of useful substances. And the second important function of a vacuole is to maintain the shape of plant cells, not of any other cell, but of plant cells. Let us come to the last topic that we have to study under vacuoles. Is we are going to now compare the vacuole in animal cell and the vacuole of a plant cell. Now this image, the first one, the first image here, let's call it figure 1. This is the image of an animal cell, and in this animal cell, let us look at a couple of structures. You see this structure here in the center where we have N written. This structure here is the nucleus, and the nucleus is occupying the central position in the animal cell. It is mostly present in the center. It is pretty large and is present in the center. And these structures here, the white structures here, let's refine it a bit. And these white structures here, these ones, this and this and this and this, and even this one here, these are all vacuoles. So the two important things that you should know about vacuoles in an animal cell is that vacuoles are not present in the center. They are found away from the center, and they are many in number. So for example, in this cell we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and 8 vacuoles in this particular cell. Coming to a plant cell, now have a look at the plant cell. The vacuole is very large. There is one single large central vacuole, and it is occupying the central position. Now the nucleus and all the other organelles, let us have a couple of look at the couple of other organelles. These organelles here are called chloroplasts, and then we cannot see the nucleus very clearly out here, but all of the other organelles have been dragged to the sides, and the vacuole occupies the central space. And another important feature of the vacuole in plants is there is only one vacuole. This is a large single vacuole. Now there is one more concept, one more term that you should understand before we proceed any further, and that is called the vesicle. Now what is a vesicle? A vesicle is also a tiny bag like a vacuole. The only difference between a vesicle and a vacuole is vesicles are much smaller than a vacuole, and otherwise vesicles perform the same functions as the vacuole.